Hello, I am Deeth. This is Deeth. 10 chronological horror films for the doctor's picture class presentation. Starting in 1974, we're going to talk about Phantom of Paradise, which has so many comparisons to Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's just directed by a more visual director. Kind of like Faust meets, I forgot, but it's like something like that. It's a good movie, especially all the influences, especially the Orson Welles and Alfred Hitchcock influences in the musical of the Macabre musical. 1978, we have George A. Romero's 1978 horror classic, Dawn of the Dead, which follows Night of the Living Dead from 1968. Nearly a decade later, the financing was from Dario Argento and Italian money, and it is an Italian-American co-production. Soundtrack probably might be one of the best things of the movie, in addition to its beautiful representation of the humanity at its time of a pre-80s consumerist culture. It's almost predictive. 1980 brings us 3 movies. The Shining, directed by Stanley Kubrick, which was considered a joke at the time. Also, fun fact, the movie originally ran a little bit longer, and there's a scene that has not been seen since its original premiere, and no one has actually seen it because Mr. Kubrick got rid of it. But apparently it was a hospital scene versus just ending on the ambiguous picture that he was there all along, or was he? We have Dress to Kill, which is also directed by Brian De Palma. Yes, we know, we hear about it all the time, but it's a controversial film. It's a 1980s version of Psycho. Spoilers, sorry. But it has had its fair share of fans and detractors. It's one of those movies you have to watch and decide how do you feel about it. Finally, Christmas Evil in 1980, which also features a similar actor in both movies. Fiona Apple's dad. That is true. Fiona Apple's father is in both these movies. Taxi Driver, but with Santa Claus. Very gray matter. This is almost like film gris in a horror film, and it takes place in New Jersey, which is kind of hilarious. You think of the Kevin Smith New Jersey jokes. Moving on to 1982, we go to 42nd Street in Basket Case. Frank Hebenlocker, who used to skip school to watch 3 to 4 or 5 movies a day, has been bathed and loves that whole 42nd Street culture. This is probably the best film to describe it because it was filmed partially on 42nd Street. Coming up in 1982, after E.T. came and touched the hearts of millions, unfortunately for Ridley Scott and John Carpenter, with Blade Runner and The Thing releasing on the same day, nobody really wanted such negativity in a Spielberg-created film universe, especially coming off the 1970s. So a lot of these movies might be considered great, and how do they not succeed? But if you're overwhelmed with negativity, perhaps positivity is the way out. Movies are still there though, aren't they? So why would you get upset retroactively? Just thought from a Scorpio. 1983 takes us to Canada for Cannes Exploitation Cinema. What is that? It's a subsection of exploitation cinema. What happens when you get an overly critical, mental thinking's man's horror film? You get Videodrome, with the obsession of violence and visual as well as the TV images. The movie might be seen dated because of its use of Betamax. Although it competed with VHS, it was the superior format in almost every way up until timing of the actual length of the tape, and it didn't have pornography, so people did not have to go to 82nd Street anymore to fulfill their deepest, darkest desires. They can do it thanks to home video and VHS. Until Sony came back with Blu-ray, and that was their revenge. 1986 takes us to Aliens, which is action, horror, and it combines a lot of different things. It's a sequel, and it's not a sequel. It's not the same exact thing. It is a very well done movie by James Cameron, who you're not sure how you think of him now, but in 1986, I really liked what he did. And then also, filing out 1986 is our first appearance of Hannibal Lecter on screen, played by Brian Cox, who you might know from X2, X United as William Stryker. Probably most fans would know him as that. And he's been in a lot of stuff. But his performance isn't Anthony Hopkins, but it's still a great performance. William Peterson from CSI pretty much is the same character in 1980s with technology. Dennis Farina is in this movie as well, following his relationship with Deeth and Michael Mann as the Chicago cop turned actor. Dennis Farina kind of knocks it out of the park, and then eventually Lawrence Fishburne will play the same character on the TV series, and they both bring different magnitudes, energies, and what do you know, contemporary cultural things into each pieces of art. So that is the top 10. I've been Deeth. You've been patient by sitting through the entire thing, and I thank you. I hope I got an A on this project.